Moving now to Europe, or more specifically the Netherlands, where the Dutch government has confirmed the authenticity of a Nazi party card held by the late Prince Bernhard. The German may have married into the Dutch royal family in the 1930s, but the latest discovery has now revived calls for an inquiry into his ties to Adolf Hitler's party. Bernhard went on to his grave swearing he had never been a paid-up member of the NSDAP political party, saying in an interview published in Dutch after his death in 2004, quote, "I can declare with my hand on the Bible I was never a Nazi." Several political parties and Jewish groups called on caretaker Prime Minister Mark Rutte to launch an investigation into the finding linked to the royal.
I can very well imagine that this news has a great impact, that it calls up a lot of emotions. In particular among the Jewish community. I am convinced that we have to see the past as it is, including the less nice parts of the past.
Well, let's go now to Amsterdam in the Netherlands, where I am joined by freelance journalist Fernande van Tetz. Firstly, why is this such a big issue now? Not only is he not part of the current royal family, but he's also not even alive. What are the ramifications of this discovery, because they don't appear to pertain to just him?
Well, so this isn't exactly new information here in the Netherlands. As early as 1996, a copy of this card had been discovered in archives. So this isn't a new story here, so to speak. However, the fact that it is now confirmed, despite, as you mentioned, these repeated denials, of course, that is a big deal. Now, it's also a bit of a mystery why he kept this card. I mean, this is in his personal archive that this historian has found it, and he's always denied this. I mean, it was always a bit of an open secret, I have to say, because he has admitted before the war that he was a member of the SS and the SA, which, of course, if you are part of those organizations, it would have been very likely that you were a member of the Nazi party. But now this card proves that he joined in 1933, so very early on in the days before they had to close the membership list because of the wave of people signing up. And of course, it does have ramifications. As you mentioned, CD, one of the interest groups here, has called for an investigation, and reactions, of course, mixed. Some people saying we knew this already, it's not so new, but of course people also calling for an investigation, and a lot of reactions here.
Right, and speaking of those reactions, has the royal family commented on the discovery and the calls for an inquiry? What exactly have they said?
Well, I mean, as you saw the king saying, he says that they have to be open to more of the gritty parts of their history as well. I have to say that it was the royal family themselves that allowed for this archive to become public. Now, this is not the state archive, which it is mandated to become public. This is the private collection of the royal family. So they allowed their historian to publish a book. That is where this information has come out in. Their private historian was allowed to go through these archives, and part of this book is that he found this card. So they have decided privately to open that up, to open the archives up until 1948. So that encompasses the entire period of the Second World War. And when they decided that, I mean, the king has said, it is because they want more transparency. And of course, with more transparency comes the risk of also more unpleasant surprises about the royal family. But he has seemed to have weighed his options and wants the public record to be set straight, wants that information out. But of course, is also showing sensitivity for the harm that could cause.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that history, including the fact that at least the royal family wants to try and put through this transparency role over here. The role of the Netherlands in World War II was neutral until the Germans invaded. The Dutch government and the royal family even relocated to London at the time. So there was a huge feeling of a sense of abandonment by the public, but that appeared to be water under a bridge until possibly now. What would the future of the royals and the public perception of them in the country be if they are trying now, as you mentioned, this is a private archive, of trying to put this forward themselves in a space of transparency?
Well, I mean, I think it is a way to try and connect with the population, to also be honest about their history. I mean, Prince Bernhard, of course, they did flee to UK, but before they fled, I mean, the image that was very prominent is also of him shooting from his garden with a gun at German planes. So I think after the war started, his allegiance wasn't questioned so much anymore. But I think it is just part of them trying to be open about their history. Of course, you can also see that with the apology for slavery that we had earlier this year. The king on the 1st of July, apologized for his family's role in slavery, which of course was a huge thing in the Dutch history as well. So you can see that that is a shift taking place, them acknowledging that, you know, that's not always been rosy, their role in Dutch history, them really opening up about that. And of course, that, you know, slavery is many, many years ago. And now the Second World War is still something very present for people. Of course, still few people of this generation still alive. But also because, you know, time has passed, it is now becoming time to reckon with that history. We see that happening across the board. And it seems the royal family wants to be a part of that.
Absolutely, perhaps trying to be in stark difference to Poland, who appears to be completely whitewashing their role in World War II as well as the Holocaust as well. Freelance journalist Fernande, thank you very much for joining me this evening.